Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome and thank you for joining me on In Review this evening. Today, the 19th of August, 2021. Very interesting day, very exciting day. Well, every day is an exciting day. I just want to wish you a good day for those joining on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. And, I want to encourage you to join in on the show, and let's just have a good, quick, interactive afternoon with the top news, some of the news, what's your news, and what's your perspective, and to, as much as possible, be a part of the solution. Well, first of all, let me just bring in Anthony Francis. Hey, Anthony, how are you doing, sir?
Hey, good evening again, Sylbourne. Good to see you. How are things?
Hey, I'm good. What can I say? It's like you're waiting for a bus, you can't find a bus, then all of a sudden so many buses come at the same time. If anybody's ever having a daunting experience as to what to talk about in the news, there's always something happening. And each week, most time we sit down and we talk and say what we're going to talk about next, and we always say, let's not think about it. Let's wait till Wednesday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And there we are with what is happening. Okay, good. Let me just bring in Richard Davis. Richard Davis, welcome to the show for your first time.
Welcome, guys.
Awesome. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Richard Davis is the director of Amazing Business Solution, and he's also co-direct with me on Facilitators for a Better Jamaica, the lobby group think tank, which we started from 2003, leading to 2008. When did we start, Richard? 2003, 2008?
I would think about 2003 or 4. I'm not sure. I have to double check. I know it's a long time ago. We've been campaigning for a better Jamaica and also the wider Caribbean region. Yep. So.
And especially with the APD, with the airport passenger duty tax.
Yes.
Yeah. What can I say?
We actually ignite the real campaign issue around things that affect us in the diaspora.
Yes.
And now we found ourselves 360 degree in relation to Haiti. So I think it's important we move things on.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we'll talk about that later. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, Anthony Francis, author of Think It, Plan It, Do It Now, and business coach, Mr. Truth. Whatever he says, always come true. It might not happen today, but he always come back and say, well, Sylbourne, I don't want to say it. I told you. Is that Anthony, right? Is that right?
Yeah, I think you got it. There. Thank you very much. Great introduction. Yeah.
And we Think It, Plan It, Do It Now, as I always very good at selling it. It's when you think it, you plan it, and you do it. And the most important thing is not just now, but right now. Anthony, say it. Give us that synopsis there. Think it, plan it, do it now.
Well, yeah, I think you've done a great job for me, actually, Sylbourne. But as you say, I mean, the title of the book is not Think It, Plan It, Do It Later. And I think the idea is that people these days should not really procrastinate. If they want to get things done, the time for talking is over, and really they ought to obviously get things done as quickly as they possibly can. However, it must be done. I must caution that by saying that it's done with some planning, and that's why part of the book actually does talk about the need to actually make sure that you plan before you actually go ahead and take any activity. But certainly the principle or the premise is to actually think, plan, and then do it now.
Well, it's interesting you say about think, plan, do it now. I think maybe Joe Biden and those guys should have actually followed your concept, isn't it? I mean, did they do it now? I mean, let's go straight into Afghanistan. Did they do it now, or are they just thinking it, or are they just planning it? Which one?
Well, I can. It's funny. I just wrote an article this week, and there were 5 points in the article that I wrote around planning, and the very first one, I think, sadly, they have not really managed to pass the test of, and that was, if you go into something, you have to have a clear vision as to what you're going in there for and what the objective is that you want to achieve at the end of it. The second one, you actually sort of state who is it for? What are you actually doing this initiative for? Who's going to benefit from? And then the final part of it is, how do you measure your success? And I think clearly on those 3 points, sadly, not just America, but the West have been found very unfortunately to be found with their trousers down the bottom of their legs here, because they have not really had a clear initiative as to why they were going into Afghanistan in the first place. I know they keep using the narrative around 9/11 and to stop the terrorists, but you have to appreciate that America and the West have been in Afghanistan now for 20 years, spent over $1 trillion, and the speed at which the Taliban took over was in literally, less than 2 weeks. So you have to ask the question, what have they actually achieved in 20 years?
Mm. And Richard, what's your take on the opening of the whole issue regarding Afghanistan?
I think just to follow on what Anthony said, which is quite right. I'm taking, coming from a business support perspective, you have to have an infrastructure. And from that, within the infrastructure, you also have to have an exit strategy. Clearly, these power to be, their exit strategy seems to be at fault. And for them not to see the potential of this happening. And that is a bit concerning. So what other areas where they're going to falter? And the other one who's supposed to be the major power to able to protect us in the West.
Yes.
It's a worrying sign. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I just want to welcome Garry Graham. We're gonna hope guests on the show. Guys, hope to be with you again next week. Garry, well, you're part of the show now, so even though you're not here physically, but you can actually give us your views as well. When we think about the whole Afghanistan bit here, and I was watching a film, I don't have it here, and I don't want to play it because of copyright issues. They show Rambo on a horse with an Afghanistan guy, and the guy said, the vengeance of the Afghanistan is, the vengeance. That is one of the things. Is it that the Afghanistan has been undermined, and the thinking behind the West is that these guys know that they are not going anywhere. They're not leaving them yard, but they know eventually America is going to go. They know the West is going to go, and they're just sitting and they're just chilling and they're just waiting for the moment. And it's like a clear miscalculation, not just because of America, should I say Biden, but maybe the exit strategy with Biden has been cocked up. But at the same time, we all know that America don't want to stay there for too long. Anthony, is that a fair analysis there? I don't know.
Well, I don't agree with that, actually, because you have to remember that it was Trump who actually was the person who signed the withdrawal agreement for Afghanistan, not Biden. So what Biden inherited was a situation which, to be honest, he supported, which was the removal of American troops from Afghanistan, because they've been there for the last 20 years. I think he was one of those people who actually said there has to come a time when they bring the American troops home. But I think what I'm surprised of is the speed at which, after 20 years of occupation, the Taliban have overrun the whole country in less than 2 weeks. And the concern and worry now is that all of that infrastructure that America has actually invested in terms of weaponry, equipment, training, ammunitions, etc., is all now in the hands of the Taliban. So I don't think people should underestimate the power now that the Taliban have in that region.
And of course, they're talking about some serious weapons that they have as well. I mean, they have inherited by default a lot of these serious weapons.
Well, but that's the point I'm making. All of that machinery, all of those ammunitions, all of those planes that were part of the Afghanistan army are now in the hands of the Taliban. And so you have to wonder to yourself, were the Afghanistan army complicit? Because, to actually take over a country who have had 20 years of occupation and training and support by the West. And by the way, we're not just talking about America and the UK, albeit America was the sort of lion's share, but you also had a number, I think up to 27 other Western countries who also participated. So it's a very big coalition that went to Afghanistan.
Can I say something?
Richard?
There's no opinion there. I think we have to put things into context. Even though the major powers like America and the UK, we must remember it was a UN initiative as well. Yeah, so there's other key players in the Allies that make up the occupation of Afghan. The area that concerns me most, yes, you mentioned that it's Trump who signed it, but Biden also have a serious responsibility to make sure the timing of him actually pull out, to ensure that all the right infrastructure in place before you cannot say you want to do it and to go on the anniversary of the 9/11 incident. because of the timing is important. Yeah. So you have to take responsibility. I wouldn't jump because someone said to me, jump because it's going to be the birthday next week. Not only that, I'm not ready to jump. I'm just putting it in that simple context, but you can see the wider meaning behind that. Yeah. And I think that's where when I made the flaw in the decision making to decide to pull out.
You know, one of the things that I do note, and I'll flag this up here, is that the day one after Biden became president, Biden actually revoked a lot of Trump policies by signing a lot of his executive orders, right? And I believe an American president must do due diligence at the same time whenever something comes on his desk. So even though Trump may have signed the withdrawal bit and planned it out, Trump did an interview recently and he said, he spoke to those Taliban guys and he said, listen, if you guys dare do anything with this process, I'm coming at you with a ton of brick. So his finger was on the pulse. That is what Trump says. I don't know, you know, that's what he says. He says he spoke to Mullah, whatever the guy name. You know, so you know, is it Boris' fault? Is it Boris? Is Dominic Raab? Who is it?
Well, no, I think, as Richard said, and I agree in that, yes, Biden gave a withdrawal date when he would like the American troops out. Yeah. But I would have thought that obviously Biden would have been getting his information from the lieutenants on the ground who would have been advising him. I mean, clearly, you know, he's not going to simply just, as Richard say, he's not going to pull them out just to meet a deadline date. I think, you know, clearly the logistics, the management, the whole sort of withdrawal was meant to have been done in an orderly manner, as opposed to the chaotic scenes that we've seen on the news. So, you know, I think it's really sad that the situation has actually escalated into a farce now, whereby you know, to actually get people out who they want to try and get out, for example, the interpreters, for example, to actually get those individuals out, they now have to negotiate with the Taliban. Yes. You know, this is the situation they now find themselves in. And so, you know, for me, I don't really understand. Obviously, Dominic Raab was on holiday when all this went down. So clearly the intelligence on the ground, either there was no intelligence, clearly there wasn't, or they were simply caught with their pants down. But to me, it sounds as if they simply did not really have the right intelligence on the ground, which they should have had. Which meant that people were on holiday, foreign secretaries were on holiday, and everyone seems to have been caught by surprise at the speed of the takeover by the Taliban army.
One of the questions many people ask is saying, how safe is Richard just went out? He's going to come back. Anthony, how safe is the world now? Has the world become safer or more unsafe? The Taliban are saying, hey guys, we are just nice. We just want to help our country. Ladies, feel free. You're just going to apply Sharia law.
I think like what most commentators have been saying, and that's, you know, sadly a leopard doesn't change its spots. And I think, you know, the proof of the pudding is going to be not in what they say, but in what they do. So I think, you know, the West won't have to wait very long for that, because they'll see it in terms of what the reporters will be able to report in the coming days and weeks now that they've taken over. You know, will people be allowed to leave? Will there be killings of people who supported the West, etc.? So, you know, will women be, you know, have to actually comply to their law and not be able to do the things that they, you know, that they were doing prior to the Taliban taking over? So I think they're the things that are important. And I think you also have to appreciate that the Taliban, for Afghanistan to actually survive and prosper, yes, of course, they've got the support of countries like, you know, Russia, etc. But they do need sanctions to be lifted. So it's important that they do show some willing, and bombing another, you know, carrying out another 9/11 style attack would simply, I think, be counterproductive to what they are trying to do.
And the whole funny thing about this whole thing, well, not funny, but the serious thing is that it's on the eve of the anniversary of September 11, 20 years ago, and which is a slap in the face. I can just imagine President Bush Jr. what he's actually saying now, because they've been playing a lot of the videos. Somebody just said a while ago on Instagram, Ted965, look at the countries around Afghanistan. I think he's relating to around maybe the support network or so. Ted, if that you can confirm if that's what you're actually saying. If I just go to some of the comments here until Richard comes back as well. I would suggest that the intelligence community knew what would have happened. Anthony, you alluded a while ago that the intelligence community seemed to have missed out or so, but is it all of them, or is what Gary's saying, they knew what would have happened? It's like they know something, but they're not coming out.
Well, I think clearly they must have known something. Otherwise, what was the intelligence? I mean, they're meant to be MI5 and intelligence agencies, not just from the UK, but the US. And, if they were that incompetent to not know what a possible activity would be in terms of the speed at which the Taliban would take over. But in defense of that, I mean, clearly people like Dominic Raab, the Foreign Secretary, was on holiday. And, we're talking about a country that's been overrun in less than 2 weeks after being occupied for 20 years. So, even commentators or observers like me looking on and others must be wondering, crikey, what on earth has happened? I mean, there doesn't seem to have been any fighting by this army that was trained by the West to defend themselves. There doesn't seem to have been a shot fired when the Taliban entered into Kabul.
Well, what I understand, and in one of my readings, and hi Gaza, how are you over there in holidays, is that they were being paid by the Americans, so their loyalty was to the money, and not to the fight, and that is why they ran away at the same time. There was no sort of passion or so, Anthony, and that's why I agree that Biden says if the army, which is 300,000 strong, and the Taliban 75,000, and these guys are going to run away and not going to fight for their own country, then why should America fight for the country?
Well, no, I totally agree. I mean, this is one of the arguments why people like Biden and also Obama. I mean, Obama was criticized for being a dove in terms of not wanting to get involved in other people's wars in their backyard. And it's for the simple reason that he simply did not want to get dragged into a situation like what the Americans have found themselves in with Afghanistan, and prior to that Vietnam, and the list goes on, where they occupy a country and then they simply have no strategy to get out. And I think this comes back to the same old question, what was their objective for going in? How were they going to measure success? What were they doing it for? And if you can't answer those three questions, then really you shouldn't have started in the first place. Yes.
I guess, well, I mean, you recall when this happened. This happened after September 11. They were trying to find bin Laden. And even though he was Saudi Arabian national, but it was in those hills and those contours and those interior of Afghanistan. And that is where they had to go to, So
yeah, but sadly, I mean, I know we're not going to do a debate on 9/11, but you have to remember as well that at one stage, bin Laden was also somebody that the Americans were actually working with. So there's a lot of history between what happened there and the subsequent fallout. But clearly, they went in there to achieve a particular act to find bin Laden. But the same way that they've gone in there and caused a disturbance, they've done that in similar regions where they simply haven't had a plan B in terms of, well, now we've done this, how do we get ourselves out?
Or put it this way, they went in for Saddam Hussein as well. Saddam Hussein would have been the guy. Anthony, if we talk about holidays now, because a lot of these guys were on holidays. I believe Trump was on holidays. I believe Kamala, everybody was on holiday. The Boris and the gang, I mean, the House of Commons was on holiday. They were called to come back. Dominic Raab was on holidays. They are now asking for Dominic Head. Do you think it's fair asking him to resign because he was on holidays and because he asked somebody else to make a call? Or there's more to it than that?
Well, I mean, look, there's always going to be calls for someone to take the blame. This is the sort of normal knee-jerk reaction that we have over here with our politics. Someone is meant to be in charge, and the immediate call is, sack him. But what I would like to hear someone say is, what was their solution? What would they have done? What was the alternative? If they, what's the basis of them actually wanting Raab to be sacked? Was it simply because he was on holiday when he should have been at his desk? But, at the end of the day, I think it's called everybody, not just Dominic Raab and the UK government. It's managed to catch everyone unawares the speed at which a country has been taken over after 20 years of occupancy. They've done it in 2 weeks, Sylbourne.
Yeah.
If you'd have said me 2 months, fine. 2 weeks.
But what is also interesting is that the Taliban are also saying they are surprised that they took over so quick as well. They are surprised, you know. Well, you know, Gaza, someone there, my good mate that comes on Talk and Sip, he's in Jamaica, he's on holidays. I'm sure he's going to say these guys need their holidays, you know. But on a serious note, though, there is a humanitarian crisis which is happening now. And I think over 20,000 or so is planning to come to the UK, phased over a period of time. Now, everybody close their eyes to some of the serious issues in the UK when it comes on to accommodation, social care, and saying, hey, these guys have been working with us. They have been interpreters, because I think, and if you can go back on the bit about the Dominic Raab and interpreters before I missed it, because there's a particular point about that, isn't it?
Well, the particular point is that the interpreters were acting as the ears and eyes for the West.
Yes.
And so, you know, really what the interpreters should have been given was a safe haven back to the UK for themselves and their families, so that they didn't become immediate targets for the Taliban when they came over. And this was something that was being spoken about a few weeks back, and there was basically you know, the usual slow talk and not enough action of people saying we'll look into it, when really they shouldn't be looking into it. They should have already had a plan to extract the interpreters and their families the minute they knew that there was something in place. In fact, there should have been almost you know, a plan laid out of exactly what would be the logistics to get them out of the country. But clearly, sadly, as we've seen with this government in numerous other incidences now, they don't seem to have a plan. You know, it's always, you know, guesswork afterwards.
Yeah, Richard, welcome back. I don't know if you're listening while you're out or so. When you went to get coffee, or you went on holidays briefly?
To Jamaica. No, sorry about that, guys. Some interruption on my side here, so I'm back.
That's
now.
okay.
Yeah, I just follow on the conversation there. I just want to echo what I said earlier before I was getting interrupted. Was it's not only UK and America seem to be get caught up with this. Seems as if the West, all the countries, the UN, all the main countries seems to be at the same point where they wasn't aware of the speed, and they was never anticipate the swift move by the Taliban, you know, to take over the main capital. Obviously, lessons need to be learned from this, but at the moment we need to ensure that all those people who should be actually leave the country should leave so as soon as possible and safe as possible. I think that should be the first priority. Those people that deem as vulnerable.
Yes. Can you? Yeah. Sorry, I lost connection there. That's interesting. Leave as quick as possible, but they're having some difficulties there because it seems like there's limited amount of resources to get them out, and the paperwork. I've been watching a news item recently whereby mothers are actually putting their children across the line for them to, you know, be taken away, you know, because they may not be able to make it. Many women are actually believing that their lives are going to be in danger. As Richard said, I don't know if you guys and Anthony said earlier, the translators, the interpreters, they are going to be sought out and maybe killed. But the Taliban has actually assured people that this is not going to happen. They're saying they want to really run their country. They want to get back to normal, but they want to live on the Sharia law. Shouldn't they be allowed to run their country?
They're telling them on the paper.
Yeah, but as I just said, Sylbourne, it's, you know, without repeating myself, it's actions, not words. You know, it's been what, 3 or 4 days since the Taliban have taken over the country, and you know what we need to see from the Taliban is, you know, action in terms of, you know, are the women allowed to carry on as they were before? Will people who are that we want to leave be allowed to leave without being threatened in any way? So these are the things that we want to see before we can judge if the Taliban have changed its spots. And for people, you know, like myself and others who are looking on and wondering, you know, if things have really changed, you know, I think it will take, you know, a few weeks, a few months for the West to sort of see what the negotiations are going to be like and what happens on the ground. And in fact, if the West can actually get those individuals out, as I just said, the West now, the UK and all these governments have to negotiate with the Taliban no longer are they in control. No longer are the West in control of the airports. It's
exactly
Taliban who's in charge. So they're the ones
Yeah.
calling the shots, and they're the ones who will tell the West what to do.
I think a very positive point there, and I think we need to, as you're right, apart from repeating ourselves, from what I've gathered so far is that there is other countries are actually broker discussion with the Taliban. At the moment, I think the UK and the US and the other major allies need to accept, as you rightly said, to confront them in the country and said, right, we need to resolve this issue regarding those people who need to leave the country. Yeah.
Yeah. That is true. Let me just get back Richard there. Okay, Richard. Sorry about that. Yes. Okay. Well, listen. What's the way forward now? Do you think that the West should really stop going into other countries? Well, they've stopped for a while. That's not been happening for a while now, is it?
Well, the West are in loads of countries, Sylbourne. So, I don't think this is a new thing, and I don't think it's a question of the West should stop. For me personally, I just think that countries should be supported where they need support in terms of humanitarian support and things like this. In terms of where there are situations that involve violence and wars, clearly there's meant to be a UN organization that's meant to support and have a UN army. I mean, sadly, I must be honest, I'm one of those people who I'm slightly cynical of the UN. It's a very big organization in New York, but very little seems to come out of them. So, that's the mechanism that's there to almost act as an arbitrator when countries find themselves in dispute. And it should be them who act as the police, or at least the arbitrators, not individual countries going in with their superpower sort of tanks and armory and shooting up the place. So, sadly for me, I don't think the lessons will be learned, and I think there will be other cases where the West go into countries when it suits them. Of course, don't forget, when the West tends to go in when it suits them. So, for example, Kuwait, they went in because it suited them because of oil.
Yes.
It'll be interesting to see if the West go into countries like Haiti to help them and their humanitarian situation, or if they just simply, have the usual slow feet and just nice words. When it suits them, they go in strong and they provide support.
And it's interesting, Richard, pick up on that point, Richard, and then I move on.
Yeah, I think just follow on. It's really important that we take a united front in how we address this serious humanitarian issue. It's not just about the political issue in Afghanistan at the moment. It's about ordinary people, families, concerned about it. Yes, there is, as we mentioned before, there's people who actually been working very close with the occupation force, and they definitely would be at risk. But there are the wider humanitarian issue that need to be addressed. We need to put the political issue aside. Not say it's going to be totally dismissive, because that's central as well. But we have to address both side issues equal in going forward.
And without a doubt, the UK is coming across very helpful. I'm hearing different councils are talking about how they are going to be working together with allocation of houses in order to facilitate this new influx, because there's influx which are coming in illegally or refugees, and then of course these persons are not refugees, because I think they're getting stay, isn't it? Indefinite stay in the country.
Yeah, I think, Sylbourne, I'm not sure, we can just have 2 minutes to debate this issue, but I think this is a very central issue as well. I know there's concern raised about the screening of people leaving Afghan to come to the various UK, America, wherever.
Yes.
And ordinary people are concerned. Yes, I think they have a right to concern, but there must be some sort of a central location, might be a separate country where they could use that to screen those people before they're actually being relocated to various parts. I'm just talking from the UK point of view, for example. Yes, because people have a right, in light of what's happened, for example, in my town, Manchester, where we have a major incident a few years ago.
Yes.
And people if you listen to local news in Manchester here and the Northwest, they're concerned. Yes, they reaching out. The city leader, Richard Lees, was on the news talking about he welcomed those people who need to be relocated because of what's happening in Afghan. But they're equally concerned about what the checks and balances to make sure any radicalization are people who have a different approach to the situation. Yes, I just want people, if you just a few minutes, talk about it, because it's very important.
Yeah. So what you're actually saying there is that you believe that there could be some individuals that might be slipping in at the same time.
Yeah, that's my biggest concern raised at the moment. Yeah.
I've heard that. Anthony, have you heard that? Like the screening, you might find that there could be some individuals slipping in.
Well, that's going to be inevitable, isn't it? In a situation like this, I mean, they're not going to be able to screen all of them, and there will be those individuals who will take advantage of the situation, as we see in other situations. So there's no way they're going to be able to screen 100% and get all of the people who they want in and avoid those out. I mean, they can't even do it in their own backyard. And here in the UK, we can't screen people. We're certainly not going to do that when people over there haven't got paperwork.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. A good topic, and I'm sure we'll get some more feedback on that. But Richard touched on briefly. Anthony, you touched on recently about Haiti, as to the rationale in going into these other Middle Eastern countries, the oil, the gold, well, oil primarily, but Haiti, right in the middle, right next door to America, right in the middle of the Caribbean. As far as I'm concerned, a very rich country, but mismanaged over the years. I believe in a way that CARICOM should be playing a key factor there. We just had the earthquake, and now I understand a tropical storm is heading there, or maybe on there right away. They're still trying to find the amount of people. Of course, a few years back, we had the earthquake again, and a lot of money, I understand, was pumped into Haiti. But the big question is it's not filtering down to the people. Let's say from a management perspective, Richard, you're into policy, and Anthony as well into project. A country like Haiti, what do you think is the way forward there?
Right. I think I just want to put things into context. And we need to go back 11 years, Sylbourne. If you remember, showing our age now, we are part of Facilitator for Better Jamaica. When the earthquake started and killed so many thousands of people, we was quick to respond under the banner of Facilitated in the diaspora, and same to the various High Commissioners. We've approached the Jamaican High Commissioner at the time and said, what's going on? We need, from a Caribbean perspective, need to do something. And we in the diaspora, we got a lot of skill, expertise, and links in those parts of the Caribbean. What can we do? And if you remember, one of the response we get was shocking, we will be right to those various community organizations around the UK. No thing was happening on the ground. People was dying. We need a very quick response team. Every year, without fail, we have major natural disaster. In the Caribbean, we should have a standby team ready to respond, and also link with the diaspora. It's not happening 11 years on from we actually raised that thing, because we even do a campaign on behalf of it. My argument is, as you mentioned before, what CARICOM is doing, what the wider people up there supporting in the Caribbean region, I included the diaspora community, where people got so much links are, why they haven't been on the standby and ready to respond. We have leave it up to a selective group of major international charity to do that. Sure, we can do better than that.
Anthony, what's your take on Haiti and the crisis there, if anything?
Well, it's a simple one, if I'm really honest with you. From a management perspective, it's been shoddy management. I mean, it's the usual, and I hate to say it. I mean, but Richard's made a valid point. This isn't, this is something that this has happened before. It's going to happen again. And, there should be a disaster recovery team with clear modus operandi in terms of how they act in this situation, in terms of warning, logistics, etc. But as Richard said, what they seem to do when these things happen is they rely on international aid and support and charities who come in and pick up the pieces that actually they should be doing in their own backyard. So I must be honest, I do sort of find it quite shocking that, you know, a country are so incompetent in terms of their own management of their own people and their own services that they have to keep on relying on other people again and again and again. What are they doing? I mean, you know, they've had previous incidences and they just don't seem to learn anything. And as Richard has said, there is no clear logistical mechanism in place for a disaster recovery operation that allows for people to be evacuated or to be put in central areas or to be communicated with. Anything, you know, they always seem to go with their big basket, waiting for somebody else to come in and pick up the pieces. For me, it's poor mismanagement.
And are you talking about Haiti there? The Haitians mismanaging Haiti?
Well, no, I'm talking about in general in that whole region. I mean, they always seem to have a problem, don't they? I mean, there's always a problem. You know, why is it every time they don't seem to have appropriate disaster recovery mechanisms in place? I mean, Richard and yourself, you guys know better than me. Richard just said you've been asking for the last 11 years. Well, what have they been doing for 11 years? What you know, I mean, you know, you've met the High Commissioner at Sylbourne. When you have these conversations, what is this guy doing? I mean, is it just the status of a High Commission and being able to all the pomp and ceremony? You know, at the end of the day, this is when I talk about, you know, think, plan, do. Where is their plan when these things happen? They don't seem to have one.
You know, before okay, go on, Richard. Go on, Richard. Yeah.
I think it just been only 2 days ago. It was noted. Obviously, you just need to check it further. That the disaster relief 11 years ago are still playing out. In other words, things haven't been put right 11 years ago. And the big question is, where all that money and those infrastructural work that was put in place to address that? Is there an issue due to corruption, or is an issue basic understanding of how best to address these issues that are happening? As we say, time and time again, every year we can guarantee, okay, this time it's an earthquake, but we know there's always natural disaster in the Caribbean. There have to be a system where we're able to deal with when funds and other equipment arrive. It do not go at a place where it's going to go disappear. It tend to happen from time to time. We need to learn how best we can support those people, ordinary people who suffer the worst, especially the poor people in the poor areas. How can we reach them direct without having to go to a certain structure where that funds or equipment doesn't reach them? And that's, to me, the area that we keep coming back time and time again. We need to address that.
But sadly, Richard, as you just said, you keep coming back to it time and time again. Yeah. And you mentioned, is it incompetence or whatever? Of course it's incompetence. There's nothing else that can be labelled to. It's got to be just down to the incompetent of the way that the country is managed by those different regions. Yeah. Otherwise, they get loads of money. They get loads of support. If they're still trying to fix the infrastructure from 11 years ago, what the hell are they doing? I mean, you know, it's just, you can't pretty up any other way. If they know these things happen, and yet the infrastructure is the way it is, they've got no mechanism. If there needs to be clear transparency where this money is and what's going on and by whom is responsible, where is the timelines, what's the milestones when things are going to happen. There's no plan, and when you have no plan, it means that you have chaos, and that's what you see over there now.
I think you know what would be interested to while we have the discussion is to find out in the UK if there's any Haitian associations in the UK, because the reason I'm saying that, I think we just recently slowly recovering from the St. Vincent volcano, and that was we in Manchester able to involve in quite a few large container shipments. First time it ever happened in the UK. We get the house in order relating to that because we was working closely with the non-governmental organization in the island, instead of just deal with the ministers and various people at the top. And it worked quite well, right? And the reason why it worked quite well, St. Vincent Association in the UK reach out to the various organizations in the UK, in the diaspora, and we respond. I'm Jamaican, And
see,
to me, it's a
yeah.
humanitarian issue in the Caribbean. And I reach out and I say to my community in Manchester, guys, no matter who you are, black, white, whatever, indifference, we need to reach out. And guess what? We did it. We actually shipped things out of a region.
Richard, I want to pick up right there because there are two things we're talking about right here. Anthony, I'm picking up, is talking about the infrastructure, the structure, the development of the country. Yeah. And I think where you're coming from, am I right, Anthony?
Well, I'm talking about, basically, they're interlinked. The infrastructure and the management and the actual coordination of when things go wrong.
Yes. Yes.
And the fact that there's no clear disaster recovery or transparency around who's doing what and by when. These are the problems. There's no good having charities talking directly to individual, areas in the Caribbean. It's got to be done through the central office. It's so that everything can be coordinated. And if the central office or the central management or government in the Caribbean or in that region don't have a coordinated approach, then what are they doing?
Listen, I had a few days and I was clearing up my garage with a lot of clothes from the children from years back. And there were about 20 bags or so. We got a charity band came and they collected. And I'm looking at these clothes and I'm saying, man, these are good clothes, man. Got the children go quick, you know what I'm saying? If there's a way, all of that, Richard, Anthony, can be shipped to a place like Haiti. I'm not talking about your wear left. I'm talking about clothes which are in good conditions at the same time. Mm-hmm. And I just find these things lacking. Toys. Children these days, they buy a toy, they just finish it within a day or two. I'm trying to say.
Could I just say something related to that? We have infrastructure organization in the UK, i.e. black churches, right? Just like in other cultural groups. In Manchester, a very large Asian community, a very, very large I think that Chinese as well as people from the Palestine community as well, Jewish community in the Manchester area. I can tell you, whenever there is a major disaster, those organizations within days already start to getting things shipping out. What I don't see from the black churches, I am talking about the African Caribbean churches, that infrastructure, they already have a ready-made infrastructure there where the minister can just pick up the phone and say, we want X amount of people out there to do it. It's not happening that way, unfortunately. And I think that's the area where we don't need to create no new infrastructure and regarding movements of goods and services around to deal with it. Is to get those churches, organizations, yes, there's community organization at the West Indian Center and the various small island organizations around the country. But they need a more direct collaborative working, and we're not doing that. And I don't like to just talk, I like to do action. That's when things that in St. Vincent with the volcano recently, within 5 weeks, we have a large shipping container with goods ready out there moving. We talk to the right people, speak to the main organization that representing those islands in the UK, and they said, guys, get it over to us. At a certain point, we should did, and we know it was on the island. And when it all arrive over there, we get the feedback to say our goods arrive, and sometimes we even see the label of the goods from Manchester. Just give us a sense of accountability. So those things can happen if we stop less talking and get action done.
I think you're trying to do it now.
That's what I want to see. So I go back to, yes, they're church organizations. We need to have a talk with us, guys. We need to have a ready-made plan, always on the standby. We have some warehouse where goods and services is there, and we're ready, and we have a point of contact for the shipping or the air freight to make it happen.
Well, we'll turn this over to Garry Graham, the minister who is there, who's been our guest. And Garry is saying this: the island of Haiti is in a very bad situation, and even with the ones where the destruction is happening, that gangs still seem to be making a mess of things. I just believe that if they need to sort that out, to me, they're going to transport out. He's going to get rid of them. There has to be a way that you've got to will be getting, so that when the relief, when everything comes to there's a way that can be done to manage the citizens of the country. You can't have 2 people or 4 people say, in each gang, making it better for the rest of the community as a whole. It is. So Garry, we'd love to hear your perspective on that, really. But without a doubt, there's a clear need for that to be addressed as much as possible in Haiti, because it can't continue like this. I know America has been supporting, but some other people say it has been counterproductive with the advent of the Clintons. But that's, there's so many voices around, so many sounds, in that respect. Anthony, what's the last word on this? Let's because those are the two key things that I believe was very crucial today. There's so many other stuff which is going on in the world, but I believe
for me, it's a simple one. Lessons learned. I mean, if this has happened before, learn from it, put in place the right infrastructure, the right process and procedures, and actually make sure it's transparent so everybody knows what's going on, rather than this situation where it almost seems to, when it does happen, people seem to suddenly look surprised. So for me, it's to actually do what it says on the tin, to think, plan, and do, and have things in place, disaster recovery plans, clear coordination plans of actions that everybody knows about when these situations arise, and don't seem to be caught short.
Richard?
Yeah, I think first thing we need to get a clear understanding of the source and i.e. the various contact points in the country, that need action now. Because you're right, we talk about the issue regarding the politics and issue regarding the mention about gangs and also non-governmental organizations. How can we actually access those organizations that we are deemed as trusted, that we can work with? And that to me is a very important point. Yeah. So, because especially going back to the issue with St. Vincent, we know when those things arrive, we actually being contacted, and those actually give us reassurance next time around when they happen. We can say, look, this is what's happened. This is how we ensure things get across the various islands in the Caribbean, and support reach those people who, in most cases, are the lower scale of the needs, in those communities. Yeah, because the rich people will have some ways of get out of that situation because they have a better infrastructure. So we need to make sure that those organizations on the ground, that we know who they are and how we can able to access them if we want to do something, i.e. from the UK perspective.
Fantastic. Well, Richard, I want to thank you so much for coming on. Richard, what's the latest in Manchester? I mean, I know you've been in a lot of social distance events. You're always having these amazing business solutions. What's the latest thing? Yeah.
Well, I think the latest thing we next month we're going to relaunch the Manchester Caribbean Business Forum.
Yes.
And that's useful. And as we've been talking about the Caribbean, and we're also working across the Northwest. In Liverpool, they just set up a business forum as well, which Manchester has support. So, like with any community, the economic infrastructure is vital. Yeah. And as a business support specialist, I think we need to focus on that, as well as deal with various social and various other community initiatives that also help to bring the community together. Yes, we are doing well regarding the pandemic. We have a very good management structure, as we call the Manchester City Council. We have the Greater Manchester Council. We have, as you know, we have Andy Burnham with high hopes to be the leader of the Labour Party. He's actually saying the right things at the moment in regarding how to deal with the pandemic issue and also how to deal with this current issue in Afghan. As you can see on the news, on the national news recently, he actually make it clear that Manchester and the Northwest is open and prepared to support those people who need help now. And I think I'm pleased to be in a city that also have been proactive and a very strong humanitarian approach to the situation.
Fantastic. And Anthony, what's your project and Thinking Planet doing now? What's your latest project? You're always up to something.
So for me, I'm being a bit more selfish actually. I'm simply at the moment writing a program which will be available in the coming months to enable people to actually do exactly what the book says. I'm actually writing an online program based on the contents of the book. So that's something which I'm doing. But on a more general note, I would like to see as Richard has just mentioned, a sort of a coming together of communities, really us working more closely rather than actually doing so just only when there's events like this, when there's a crisis. I think we should be working closely together when there aren't crises, so that we can put in place proper paths of communication, of associations, of how we actually want to work with each other, so that we don't always do it as a knee-jerk reaction because of a crisis. We should be able to react to these situations in a more coordinated way. And it shouldn't be just on one or two charitable organizations. It should be done more collectively, so that everybody's involved. And I think, Richard makes a very, very point about community. And I think hopefully when these situations happen, people will hopefully think to join these organizations to provide support.
And to be very proactive as well, because I tell you this, there's a gentleman I have, a friend of mine, who was there was a place, which was a pub, which a council gave over to them to use for Windrush persons. And I think they broke into it, and some people started to live in, some squatters. Anyway, the council took it back, and now they got it back. And there's so much potential there that I'm going to be working with them as a way to see how it can be used as a sort of developing tool within the community in Lewisham here. So there's so much potential when people come together, and a lot of people that came together for this particular place. And Anthony, I'll let you know about it at some other time, because there's so much great scope with that when people come together at this time, because there's a saying in Jamaica why the Governor General said, he said, what is wrong with Jamaica can be made right with what is right for Jamaica, and it can apply it in everywhere. What is wrong with a community can be made right with what is right for that community, So on that note, guys, have a good night.
Thank you. See you again.
Yeah. Okay. Bye.
Richard, all the best.
All the best.
So much. I know, Anthony, you're going to have what are you going to have? Your hot cocoa?
Thanks very much, Sylbourne.
Thank you very much, guys. Richard,
Okay.
take care of yourself all the way in Manchester. Peace out.
Bye.
Bye-bye, guys. Bye-bye. Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining tonight. And that was a good show. Very interesting show. I want to say to you that I did have that conversation with the representative from the Maroons, and we're going to be having, I'm hopefully going to be having one of the representatives on the show. I'm hoping maybe tomorrow night or maybe Saturday night on Talk and Sip, because there's a big thing going on in Jamaica regarding Chief Richard Curry. So that's going to be a very interesting conversation, whatever it happens. So I'm keeping it open and keeping the space open and keeping a very open mind in the discussion regarding the Maroons in Jamaica, a part of the Jamaican heritage. So that is going to be something I'm looking forward to. Talk and Sip Saturday night. Hopefully may get in on there. The topic will be anything. Things change around. So what can I say? Now, also, this Sunday night, I'm going to have this lady, Shalisha M. Cassie, CEO and founder of Squidgy Academy. Sunday the 22nd, Squidgy Academy. Squidgy Academy International, I should say, is a way and is a project to get some of these young people off the street in Jamaica. And if you go around like New Kingston, Waterloo Road, or also Trafalgar Road, if I'm not mistaken, you have these guys who are cleaning windows with their, wipers and stuff like that. And sometimes they are a menace, but sometimes people have got to know them. And actually, it's a way of having a honest bread. So our plan and our team is to somehow try to create an academy so they can come off the road, give them a stipend, and by giving them a stipend, enable them to get some training at the same time. Because if these guys are working, without a doubt, you have to give them something to come off the road, because they may be fending for their family, maybe they have children or so, and they are somewhat in poverty to a certain extent. So Shalisha M. Cassie is going to come on the show this Sunday evening. and going to talk about the project and reaching out to the diaspora to see how the diaspora can assist in this project as well. So kudos on her, and looking forward to that this Sunday night. I'm going to be on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Well, not Instagram directly, you can see me on Instagram, but you can tune into YouTube and Facebook for Squeegee Academy this Sunday evening at 22nd of this month at 9 p.m. UK time, 3 p.m. Jamaica time. Okay, and that is going to be a very interesting show. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, have a good night. Thank you very much, and peace out. Boom. Thank you. And those on Instagram, thank you very much as well. Have a good night. Peace out. Bye-bye.